Hi. Welcome again to the AgileTD After Work. So yesterday we were in Seattle. Today we're in Bolivia. So this is amazing. We're traveling the world just for you. So today we're very happy. I'm very happy to have Karime Salomón Zárate with us. And like I said, she's in Bolivia, and I welcome her to the AgileTD After Work. Hi,
Hey, Jose.
how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. So we were talking a little bit on the background because some of you know that I have quite a strong relation to Bolivia because I did have a company many years there doing software development, and still today we are working with people there remotely, and very nice people, amazing country, amazing food, and we are very happy that to have you there. So Karim, who are you? Tell us.
Okay. Well, first of all, yes, everybody here, in Bolivia is really hard working. So there is a lot of great talent here, I think. Well, who I am? Well, I am from Bolivia, as you just mentioned. I am passionate about QA, automation, and now AI. I work on I started initially as a software developer for a couple of years once I finished my career. And then I started with quality assurance, which at the beginning, I was shocked because I didn't cover quality at all when I was in the university. It was too many years ago. But when I started with quality, I literally fall in love with quality and all the different things that we can do. So yeah, I would say I'm passionate about QA and automation. I was always trying to see like a new tools, new strategies. I'm trying to learn all the time. And now with AI, in the last couple of years, I am like trying to learn a lot of things and trying to help my people, help myself, understanding or using something. So yeah, that's who I am, like a technology lover by now.
Okay, that's very nice. So we are very happy to come with you, and yeah, this is your stage. So enjoy your time, your presentation, and see you later. I just let you alone with your presentation. Okay,
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Jose.
you are welcome.
Okay, so hello everybody. You already heard a little bit about myself, so I'm gonna go directly to the topic. The topic that I decided to present for this Agile Testing Days After Work was the challenge behind the idea of an AI agent for QA, which, I don't know if this really make any sense for you, but since we started, like 2 years ago when we had suddenly ChatGPT and OpenAI, like free and open for everybody, or almost, and everybody was kind of with the vibe on AI, right? And since that day, I was trying, to take some courses to learn a lot about AI. But at some point, I was asking some questions to myself on how can I actually use it or which kind of things we can have for QA itself. So mainly this presentation is to talk a little bit about the challenges that I face, that I'm still facing, and I hope that this will make any sense for you, and then it can help you also in understanding how or which kind of steps you can take on your journey with AI. Okay, so let me. Okay. So, first of all, beyond just tools, right? Right now, I think we are in a moment, and I was doing a lot of presentations online, also in person. And I think most of the questions in general are around the tools that they can use with AI, because that's everything that we are receiving, right? Everybody's talking about AI, but of course, and also as Jason mentioned yesterday, right? There is a lot of companies that are putting something inside their own products with AI so that everybody's going to try to get them, before, right? But whenever you are, and maybe this was your situation too, whenever you are as a QA or an automation and you are thinking about how you can actually have, or as I said, embrace the change with I would say it's not just about tools. Of course, tools are important. We need tools. We need a way to interact with AI without maybe understanding the really deeper concept on how the algorithm is working, how some specific data is defined, or something like that, right? So without going too deep, we need to have tools. But first of all, I think we need to try to understand what we are trying to get with these tools, right? So we can think like, okay, we want to access information smarter. Remember in the past, before 2 years ago, everybody was looking at options on Google. Everybody was looking code corrections or helping code in Stack Overflow or any other similar places. And now, not only for our field, of course, but now everybody can just go and ask a tool and get some information or access to some information without saying it's a magic pill. But of course, it's going to give you some interesting insights, and now more than ever, right? At the beginning, I remember there were a lot of discussions about how, for example, the models were wrong, how it was hallucinating with some answers, and many people was more acceptable to this one or to use AI. But nowadays, and probably you saw the same, we had a lot of improvements in the way that it's answering questions, the way that we had analysis on some specific things that we need to use, right? So then another thing that we need to think, not when we say not just about the tools, is how can we give some context, right, to what we need? I would say everybody is in general trying to think. We had two groups. One group which is 100% on AI, and they really want to do something and give the best usage to it. And there is another group who is kind of acceptive about it, right? They are not happy with the results. They are always finding some bugs, and they are even discussing about it, right? Like, oh, I did this math and it's basic and it's wrong, or I got this answer. And then everybody's trying to create a whole discussion about the things that are wrong, that of course will be wrong, right? If we really understand that at some point it's not just a matter of using a tool and having something that we need, but we will need to consider different steps also whenever we are selecting something, and and we are identifying why we need that tool and what's going to be our effort. A common question is like, oh, AI is going to take my role. And I think even Jonathan Wright and also Jason and everybody's talking that AI is not going to take your job, but the people who use AI is going to take it, right? So I think we are in a moment when we need to understand different things on how we can actually use these tools. We need to embrace this change, and we need to try to be on top of it. And another point that I mentioned here is that, the support or the good things that you can give to the entire team, right? So I would say the conversation is not just about tools, which is the starting point, but it's not only about it. So I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to talk about this idea, okay? The idea on having a QA agent for an AI agent for QA. So, since I started thinking about how can I actually put AI in, I am working right now as a senior director, and of course, as part of my role, behind all the different tasks that I had to do, I'm always trying to see how can I help my team, and somehow how can I define new things that can optimize processes, that can optimize time, etc. And whenever everybody's kind of using AI, if we think about just this hybrid role that I talk in the Automation Guild also, in the past we used to have manuals and then the automation guys, and then we want both, right? We want somebody who has the knowledge on QA, on understanding the quality of the product, but also having the technical skills to automate this, to make this process faster, right? So I'm always trying to think how we can actually put something inside our processes so that, my people can have the right tools that they need. We can have the correct results from the project or product which is going to make, of course, our business side happy because we're going to have like higher quality with a better or with optimized resources, right? So thinking about that, I realized that at some point we were just thinking about tools, right? And saying, okay, I'm going to use Cursor, or I'm going to use a GitHub Copilot, or I'm going to use, I don't know, directly ChatGPT, right? Which was the most, I would say, natural step that everybody was taking out, right? At the beginning, everything was ChatGPT. And then, with the other tools that we start having, with the other models that we saw that probably we can have this in your own computer, you can have something local, then you can have something on the cloud. Then we start like moving pieces around. But at some point, it was just to say, how can I actually use these tools to make my life easier or to help me, right? I remember last year I gave a presentation on the United Testing, and was talking about how AI was actually helping a lot of my guys, because this was a real story. When at the beginning I had a lot of rejection from QA to do automation, and suddenly when we had ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot, they are not afraid anymore, right? The common comment on telling me whenever we were discussing about, that we need to have more automation, I remember clearly my manual people, they were like, hey, I don't like to code. I don't like to learn that part of the skills needed. I want to continue doing QA, doing exploratory, understanding business. That's my own, right? But suddenly, when we had these tools, then everybody's happy doing automation. There are no problems. And I can tell you, whenever we had a framework and we need an upgrade, or we have a new approach that we're going to be using, or even a new tool, then now I don't have that line, right, between QA plus automation. Everybody's feeling more confident. They are not afraid on asking what they call dumb questions at the beginning, because there are no judgment whenever you're talking to a tool, right? So, but besides that, when I saw that everything was working like in the way that I would like to have this working before, in the past, we needed trainings, we needed people investing time in other people on understanding the technical stuff and that kind of things. And I realized that now with AI, we are finally at that point when these differences in some specific skills can be covered with the help of AI. But it was not something that I say, okay, we are done. We are a company or a product or a group which is working with AI, because it's just that usage of the tool for some specific points that we need. Okay. So then, I was trying to use different tools to do a lot of stuff. I was interacting with the AI agents that suddenly, in January this year, everything was about agentic AI, right? And when I was thinking about that, I say, okay, what's the pain point that we have always in QA, right? And I was trying to think how we can actually take the benefits of all of these different tools that we have right now, but giving us like a more value and helping us uncovering some specific points that I think we need, right? So the first point, and probably many people will agree with this, is the QE documentation, right? I know there are some controversial points on this, because many people is going to say, "Oh, we don't document anymore. We are doing everything agile. We don't need to create documentation at all." Blah blah blah. I would say it depends on the team, because even if I heard those kind of things many years ago, maybe more than 5 years ago, I remember many people was complaining about documentation. But suddenly you get in a team, you get in a product where the missing point in documentation creates misunderstandings between the usual case, right? What business wants, what the developer created versus what QA tested, and then suddenly we came up with something and it was not exactly what business was waiting for, right? And then if you do a retrospective on this, you will see that the problem, and maybe this is not for everybody, but I would say I had around maybe 14 years of experience now in QA, and I was working in really a lot of different kind of products in all of these years. And I saw that one of the main points is is this, right? That we have Jiras with some requirements. We had documents, could be a Confluence page, could be a Google Doc, could be a meeting notes. Now that we have the AI to take notes for a meeting, it could be in that meeting notes. And then we had our test cases, which actually are giving the proper coverage that was done for some specific feature. But let's consider the worst case. What happened if we were expecting to give something to our customers with our products, and then it's not working in some specific conditions? Whenever we want to see why we missed that, and whenever we want to understand the root cause of something, getting all of this information and understanding what was the point and what was the coverage, how many cases we're actually giving value, right? I think there is a lot of conversations around if we really need test cases, like detailed test cases, or anything about what's being covered as a support. Right now, I think we really don't have a way to say, oh, I cover this. I would say with the BDD approach, many products, many teams were also trying to to have like a clear plain text test cases where anybody from business to development can understand what is this test doing. But I don't know if you face the same, but I saw a lot of cases where it was just test cases that are not bringing a lot of value, that are not focused on behavior, etc. So I would say this is clearly for me a pain point, right? So I was thinking on this idea, trying to say how I can actually use AI in order to help me, besides the tools. And then another point on this is that whenever I am describing these scenarios, I am trying to say that we never had like a single source of truth, right? Because we had, as I said, some meeting notes, some Jira, some description or something, depending on the team that you are. But we can have inconsistencies and we can miscommunicate something. And as a result, we are having some kind of a problem at some point. Of course, if everything goes well, nothing happened. The problem is when something goes wrong, or when we are affecting our end users, or the commitment that the people has with us. Because if they receive something that they were not expecting, think about the most critical case. It's not the same an issue in an address whenever you're sending something. But if you had like a product which is, I don't know, monitoring the health of somebody, right? An error, an issue there, it's going to be critical, or could be critical, or money, or anything. Okay. So the vision, whenever I was getting all of these pain points, and I was thinking about how can I actually put this as part of a process, what I was really looking for was to say, hey, we can have something using AI which can actually help us on improve and optimize where we are right now. Okay, of course there are some really great options outside when you can put something really new which is going to do all of your testing, or probably in some months that's going to be the way to work. But I think right now we are in a kind of a middle point where we had all, I would say, the legacy way that we work with QA, which of course is going to continue evolving and is going to change. But right now we cannot just say, hey guys, just shut down everything that we have and start over. Because I think depending on how big is your product, you cannot take that kind of decisions suddenly, or at least that's my perspective. So I was thinking about something that could be part of the process and that can help us in giving shape to all of these points that probably we can, improve. And of course, it sounds like magic, only if it works, right? So I was imagining an AI agent for QA, which first of all can know the test cases, can understand how many test cases we cover for X feature. If I had a change in feature A, what else I need to test, or what should be part of this regression, or what was covered, what was missing, right? So having a good knowledge understanding that a model right now can receive a lot of information and can give you something in results according to the questions you're asking. Then the understanding of the bug history, right? Sometimes, and I think this is really normal on the market, we are changing people constantly, right? Because they get new opportunities, they didn't like the way that they were working, or they get bored after too many years of doing the same or testing the same products. Right now, I think everybody's trying to look for different options, new tools, new trends, new, I don't know, new technologies to work. And then we are changing people constantly. And then when, if you had the same person for 10 years, which is going to remember what happened 3 years ago, maybe, oh yeah, we had this bug, right? And the problem was that, or the impact was this. And now what happened if we had something broken again? We had to retest it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that somebody's going to take the time to review like thousands of test cases, or trying to search for a Jira that was closed 3 or 4 years ago, just to understand what was the problem. But I think that, if we think about the way that AI can work, can help us in that with a single line, right? Then grasping business rules, I think the main pain point, and I would say for software development, since I started, too many years ago, I remember that we had always that picture on on what business is selling, what the product owner understand, what we develop, and what we test and what we deliver. It's something completely different, right? The expectation is not reached because of these points or miscommunication or the way that we understand that something needs to be done. So this could be another good point that could be part of the agent, right? If I had like clear information about what business is expecting for this product, then whenever I am having this or asking for these test cases, or for example, the coverage that I gave to some specific feature, it's going to be easier to say, hey, what are my main features, or what's going to be part of this acceptance according these requirements? And then I can drive my testing for that. I can even create the test cases, or have the suggestion for the test cases, and follow that rule inside that single place, right? It's not now about going, okay, let's go and ask to the PO if I understand it correctly. Let's go and ask to the developer, and then let's meet everybody together and say, okay, we are clear on what we're getting, right? So when I was thinking about the AI agent, I was thinking in something like this, right? Something that can actually answer questions. And as I said, not just the tool, but having this agent, the concept of the agent, or understanding things. Probably, if you think a little bit more, some people is going to say, oh, an agent is not just a place where you're putting information and getting documentation, which is correct. But I think that's the first step, right? You want to do something else. For example, you want to have all of these scenarios covered or automated, or doing something that, of course, the agent is going to have the capabilities to do it, probably at some point without the intervention. But this was the initial point that I consider for it. But the reality, is trickier than it sounds. Okay. So whenever I was, investigating about this, I was really motivated. I was trying even to do it on my own, right? I was trying to see, okay, I can install this model locally. I can create this code, which is going to do the queries. I take one file, I take like my own POC, and trying to see if this is actually giving me what I want, right? So, but then the execution is hard, okay? Having this, because I would say whenever I'm talking about this, and I am always repeating that it's not about tools, because maybe there are outside any tool that is going to be able to do this. I don't know yet. If you know it, just drop me a message. But when I was thinking about this, as I said, I was trying to fix some problem that, because of time, resources, or anything else inside the team, we cannot do it in the past, and we were doing our best. I cannot blame anybody when we don't have like clear documentation, or when we miss it something. Of course we need to improve it, but are things that used to happen. Anyway, the execution is hard. Okay. So trying to put this idea, this vision into practice, it brings me a lot of challenges. As I was saying at the beginning, I just say, okay, this is, for example, I used to have one specific tool that we used to use, and it was really, really hard. Whenever you're using it for years, then suddenly you already know which methods, which kind of things you can call. But it was an internal tool, and it was really properly documented like it used to be in the past. So when I tried to ingest this, I was thinking about building this agent locally, in order to also take care of the business knowledge, right? We don't want to expose everything on the cloud for a single test, and suddenly the things are not working, but your information is already there, right? So I was trying to start small with something specific. And then I would say in the first step, I get this document. I was using a rack system. I was just ingesting this in a rack, and we had these chunks created for the different pieces of the data. And then I have a clear context. And then I was doing some at the beginning in command line some questions, and then suddenly it was giving me the right answers, and I was like, wow. Okay, at the beginning it was hard to do it, but then it was giving me some lights about it. But this third point, like without the process, without thinking on all the different pieces on what you need, the effort is wasted. Okay, so, and I compare this with the early days of automation. I remember when we were having, and I started, maybe automation started before I started with automation in 2012. Okay. So it's been a lot of years when I started with it. And I remember everybody wants to have automation. It was even like a goals for different companies. There were like a really high trend on hires for automation roles. And then suddenly you had all the people prepared, were really well trained, they get into the team and they are doing manual testing, or they had no time to do automation, or the strategy that was defined, it was not so good, and we're always behind the development cycle, or we are always having everything fail because of a change in an ID. And we had fragility in test cases. We get the concept of the flaky test cases. And I think many of the things was because we want to have it. I mean, we want to have automation. Everybody want to have automation. Everybody want to goes with true CACD or something like that. But without thinking about the process and a process and how we can actually put it and use it, then it's going to be a waste of time, a waste of resources, and then probably even having some people demotivated, right? Because you're saying, oh, you're going to be in an AI environment and you're going to use the latest trends, etc. And then you get into the team and you are just using ChatGPT for your regular automated cases, and you are following exactly the same, and then there are no change in the process itself, right? So I would take a 5 big challenge according to this idea. I'm trying to just put, in this presentation, something together about what and how you can actually use or put some ideas together, and trying to get that thinking on how you can put it as part of your process, and not only on saying, oh, I'm going to use this tool. Okay. So first of all, I would say the unclear purpose. Okay. If you think about what you can actually give to your teams, to you, or anything regarding AI, you need to understand, in the same way that I told you, like put a list of the things that you really want to fix. Understand what's your main goal, what you want to reach, and which kind of things you are expecting whenever you are doing an investigation, whenever, okay, could be a tool too, right? Whenever you are using a new tool, you can say, okay, what I want to fix is not just use something because I want to use and I want to say, oh, I use AI for everything that I do in my day to day, which is good, but it's not just use for use, it's to use with a purpose. Then this is a really important point. And I think whenever we are thinking, we are too familiar with ChatGPT, probably, or Cloud, or Gemini, depending on which one you're using, or any model that you have. But, whenever you're putting something, and then suddenly you had great responses, you had a good analysis on something that you need, but you're not thinking what happened behind when you're trying to put this in something specific. And that's when I face this problem with the messy data, right? I just described whenever you had different pieces of information in different places. When I did my initial test, when I took this really well formatted document and I ingested into my rack, and then I was consuming an LLM and asking a query about how can I use that tool, it worked perfectly. But it was because, too many years ago when this document was created, it was following some format that, being honest, we don't follow like some structured data anymore, right? Even if we consider the way that we are writing test cases, if we do, right? Because there are some teams that are not writing test cases and they are just putting everything in code in the frameworks, and how you can get, and they are not using BTD, for example, right? So you're going to have methods, you're going to have steps too, but the way that you create your method is not going to be exactly the same that somebody else, right? So inconsistent in data, it's a big challenge. Because whenever you want to get something good, garbage in, garbage out, right? That concept is really clear more than ever now. So messy data, I would say it's really a big challenge, because whenever you want something, you need to think about a correct structure, or what you can call correct structure, and of course some kind of standards. The unrealistic expectations, right now we had, and as I was saying before, we had this hype on AI, right? Everybody want to use it. Everybody want to say, I am using it. I am doing this with AI. But what's the value that you are getting from it, right? So whenever you say, oh, for example, in my case, in my idea, I'm going to have an AI agent which is going to do A, B, and C. And then I'm going to just ingest my test cases, ingest my code, do this, and this, and then get a good result. Then if you go step by step, it's not going to happen exactly like that. I hope at some point we can get it, so easy. But right now, maybe we're not yet at that point. Another thing is, the poor team integration. Whenever you're discussing about any new process or any extra work or effort that is going to be needed in order to reach these kind of things, and there are some rejection from the team. So people is going to say, why we had, and maybe you heard this, why we had to change something that is working, right? And of course, I heard this also when Agile came in. I remember many people saying why we need to do, I don't know, like the things, or to adopt Scrum, for example, if in Waterfall it was working fine. Right now, maybe many people is going to laugh about it, but I had this conversation, this real conversation. And I think we are exactly at the same point. Many people doesn't want to adopt, first of all, because they don't trust in the idea, they don't trust in the tools that we can propose, but of course also because they don't want to lose their jobs, right? There's another point of rejection for it. And another big challenge is to have no measure of impact, right? When you really want to propose or think about something that you can introduce with AI, and you're just doing it really like a natural, let's say, you're just taking a tool, using it for your day to day, and suddenly the things are optimizing only for you or for the things that you want to do. But let's think about how we can actually measure it. How you can say, because I know, and I heard in a lot of, I read in forums, I read in a lot of conversations, or even in presentations, is it true that you can reduce 20 or 30% of the team because of AI? And many people is saying it without having the proof on that, and many other people is guessing, right? Because right now, if you don't measure something, I think whenever you're trying to implement something, you need to always remember that you need to measure where you are, which kind of things you are doing right now, what's the time it's taking for you. And then whenever you implement something, or you are using a new tool or you're getting some good results, you can say, okay, this task used to take me 4 days and now it's taking me one. Then you can easily say what's the percentage that it's actually helping you or optimizing. But never just say a percentage because you want to say it. I heard the 20-30 too many times, and I am always trying to ask, but I never did it, to be honest. But I heard people saying, oh, we improved 20%, we improved 30%, but 20 or 30 of what? So it's really important. And whenever you are there already and you forget about that, you forget about what you want to measure, what you want to show, then it's going to be a problem, right? How you go back in time and get all of that information. Okay, so first of all, defining the purpose. The purpose. Okay, we already talked about this, but what's the primary function? What's the problem that you want to solve? And of course, try to make it, or in my case, try to make it as smaller as possible, or try to think about a POC. I know that right now with AI, we can always think bigger and we can always try to make the things faster than it was in the past. But I would say going with some precaution about what we're going to give as an expectation. For example, for the people who is trying to define something and present it to their managers, always think about what you want to fix, what's the problem you want to solve, and then define a goals, right? I put here without a clear goal, and I think I said it before, the AI agent will deliver no value, right? And this is going to be the first thing to the other challenge that I talked before, which is the data, right? The garbage in and garbage out. Whenever we don't have real value with what we're saying, or we cannot measure, we cannot show it, then suddenly you don't have good results, and also the rejection on the team that we discussed previously. Okay, so garbage in, garbage out. In this specific case for the challenge that I face, the QA data is, as I said, often I would say often structured, but not in every single place. Okay, so for example, you had test cases, you had your automated frameworks, you have your, as I said, your Jiras, and everything is going to have different formats. Everything is going to use different data structure, right? So, and I did the test, right? So I'm not just saying this is because it sounds like it's not going to work. I did a test, I can consume API of the different tools that I'm using, from the result of automation, from the current test cases we have, from Jira, we have access to APIs of our different tools. So I just get it. And I did the first, like a basic trial, I just take the data and ingest into my rack system. And then I say, okay, let's see what is here, what's being recognized. I put data, you can think that data is all, and of course it is, but it should be structured. And then you had no idea how many bad answers I got from that one. Okay. So again, you're going to have something good if you had data quality, right? If you had a structure, if you had a standard defined, because how the model can recognize that something is a title of a specific feature, right? If you want to say, for example, my business requirement is to be able to do A, B, and C. How many test cases were covered for that features? How the model is going to recognize that if it has no idea? You just loaded some folders, and then if it finds a word in different folders, it's going to consider that maybe this is, and then the hallucinations that we right now, we still have it, of course, but we had less than before. Then I was exactly at the point that we were 2 years ago. And then poor inputs leads to poor outputs, right? So always data is going to be good, at least for this idea. Then you need to train and tune in the agent. And I think, this is not like a single task. And this is why at the beginning, when I was talking with Jose, I say I am a technology lover. And the reason why I really enjoy a lot technology is because we never stop learning, right? We had to always do something. And I really like that even now with AI, we can think that, okay, I don't need to learn anything new because I can take it directly from AI, and I can doing my stuff quicker without even knowing how to do it. But I think here, whenever you are thinking about building something like that, you had to understand that nothing is going to be great at the beginning with a single solution, and all the time we'll need this training and tuning. And I think that's kind of the natural way that even we as humans are working, right? When we are getting into a team, it's not going to be the same when we are starting and reviewing that information and understanding how the product works than when we are 3 years already in that company and we already know how the things are moving. It's exactly the same. For AI, we need to constantly review what we have, what we can improve. We need iterations. We can say, okay, this is my first iteration. I got these good results. Now I put this and I had some issues, right? So training and tuning is kind of a constantly, because otherwise, one of the pain points that I mentioned was that we had all the information split, but remember that business are constantly changing, right? The products, and I would say now more than ever, every single product is trying to be on top of new changes, new technologies, new trends. In the past, we can have like a specific requirements, but right now we want something that is good, for our specific line of business, but also we want something that looks great, that it's easy to use, that is going to help different kind of users. It can work in different countries with different conditions. There is a lot of things changing every single day from the business perspective. And the same for the agent, right? The information that you feed into your agent, if you are thinking about this, and then it needs to be constantly updated, and we need to continuously refine it, because there are something that probably is obsolete. How the agent knows that this is obsolete, how the agent knows that this functionality is not available anymore and it shouldn't be considered, right? So those kind of things need to be part, or whenever you are thinking about this, you need to have of course feedback for learning and adaptation, because as I just say, you need to constantly update it. You need to get you need to train it, of course. And think about like onboarding a new team member. I think it's the best analog that I can use, because it's not an instant solution. It's not a magic pill. It's a gradual process, and it will, of course, constantly be changing, but we need to go into the same direction. Okay, another point whenever I was thinking about this is, the team integration. Whenever you had this idea, or you wanted to have this, let's say, AI agent, use it for this. You can think about an agent or a tool or something into different stages of your software development cycle, or at some specific point of your process. It depends on what you are thinking about. But in this specific case, when you think about how you will integrate this in your team, you had to think like, where does the agent live? It's going to be accessible for everybody. Is it going to be from business to the new intern? Which, of course, I think the answer is yes, right? It's going to be shared, but it's going to be public. It's going to be internal. I guess it should be internal, right? So it will depend on what you're looking for, what you're trying to get. And of course, regarding the team integration, how I can actually give some information that my team member can use it properly, or how we are not messing between each other whenever you're using the same source of truth, or we are ingesting this data everybody can ingest. There are a lot of things there. And of course, the people trust and use it. Whenever you're saying, hey, we can have this and you can use this in this direction, are they really using it? For example, something that happened to me whenever we were trying to share this and say, okay, let's try it. And it was, people was like, oh, I asked something similar to ChatGPT and I got like a better analysis on this, which is good, because it can give you ideas on how you can actually see something else that could improve. But it means that the people is not trusting enough to use it, and which means that you still need to do something. And again, with my comparison with automation, the trust adoption curve, it's similar, because I clearly remember when you say we need to automate everything or as much as we can, or we need to automate this and this, everybody was like, yeah, but I can do it faster, I can do it on my own, I don't trust on this execution. And I don't know you, but I remember some years ago when we were starting with the mobile automation, and we had, until now, I think many teams are still using this farm of devices, right? My teams were not trusting on the results because the device is going to take some delays, in connect to the device or do something, and they were doing it quickly. And every time that we have a release, this group of people was running them as fast as they can in their different phones, and it's because they didn't trust on it, right? So I think we are exactly at the same point with this now. Then, as I said also previously, measuring the value. I think if we didn't measure the impact, if we didn't know in which kind of situations this is going to help us, then of course we are not showing the real value or understanding why something could work or not. So my advice here, because I faced that also, is that whenever you're trying to do something, first of all, understand where you are, right? Think about, okay, I have this take me A, B, and C, I don't know, this amount of things that I need to do and this amount of time. And now that I'm using something new, or that I introduce AI for this, now I'm doing it faster, right? I am having more time to do something else, to invest my time in something else. Okay, so what I learned so far, the initial setup is easy, right? Even if I say that was complex for me, because it was. Also, in my conversations, I always try to talk about this with different people. They were giving me ideas like, hey, I saw this tool, you can use it to do this easier, instead of just building something at code level. Then, for example, tools like line chain, anything LLM, it's an UI interface that you can use. There is a lot of options outside that are also open source that you can use, and whenever you understand which kind of things you want to do, I would say the setup, or the initial setup, it's easy. But the challenge, of course, and with all the stuff that I just mentioned, is that making it useful, or making it really giving you value, I would say that's a challenge, right? Whenever you think about an idea, you need to prove it. You need to say, you need to find that purpose that I just mentioned, and say, this is what I want to fix, and this is the results that I'm getting. And while saying it's not it's not a feature, it's not just a tool or something that I'm going to say I'm going to put it here and everything is fixed. It's a process. It's a process to understand these different points. It's a process to understand where and how you want to use it in order to optimize something, or to take as much advantage as you can from this tool. There are multiple examples. I always use in our field, whenever I compare manual QA plus automation, or this hype with automation that we had like more than 10 years ago, with this hype on AI right now. I know you can understand that, but for any other people, we can think about the usage of the calculator, right? At some point, how it was actually helping us, and now nobody can live without the calculator, right? The same with the internet. At some point, for investigations, we had books and libraries and a lot of places to go to investigate, and then we had everything on internet. And now I would say there are no people who is not using internet for reference. And then now we have AI, right? So I think it's really important to always consider that this is something that can actually help us. There are plenty of tools that can help us on doing our life easier, but of course we need to first of all understand if it's worth it or not, to define something. And I say, is it worth it? Yes, if it solves real problems. And real problems are, and as I just said before, it's not just something that sounds nice and you want to just put the line, oh, I'm using this because A, B, and C, but it's because it's solving this problem and this problem, or it's, improving this or optimizing this. And is it worth it? No, if it's just the hype, right? If you just want to say, I am using this, but you're not really solving anything, then probably it's not. Okay. Okay. And just as a conclusion, well, first of all, I always put this because I know it's the question that everybody has. And I also realized that, the people who is constantly asking this, like AI is going to replace me, I think is the people who is actually worried about it, which is good because they will be trying to build more confidence on the usage of AI. Okay, but I think the answer, or the clear answer is that it will not replace you, and of course it can boost your skills. It can help you, and I think I said this before. This can give you kind of superpowers, right? If you know how to use it, of course. Then another thing is to think beyond the tools. I know tools are great, and I'm always ready to use any new tool. I'm always trying to, if I would have more time, I would use, every single tool that I see on the market that, you can try. But always think beyond the tools. Focus, of course, on value, purpose. And I would add here also, what contribution you're trying to get from it. Okay. Then building an AI agent, of course, it's a process, not a one-time setup. Even if you're using not only for QA, I just try to give one specific example in this presentation because I was facing that. I was trying to do that. And I think sometimes it's really important to try something and then discuss about this, and maybe other ideas are going to come up and are going to help also other people if they had exactly the same questions. But remember, it's a process. Never think that, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it, and it's going to work. You need to take it, of course, try it, see if it works, and make sure what you have before, what you get now, how this is going to help you, and then you understand really the real value. Start small, as I said, iterate and learn as you go. I think right now we don't have really a place where we can say this is the formula or this is the recipe to do A, B, and C. I think too many years ago we had no recipes. Not only right now with AI, but yeah, I would say for automation also. Everything, every team, every product has different conditions, different flavors, and different things that we need to consider. And clean and structured data matters more than you think. So whenever you are building something, whenever you are trying to get something, remember that data is the reason why we can have right now those models. It was been years and thousands of data for different fields, for different things. But that's the new gold, I would say. And with that, I just finished my presentation. I don't know if you had any questions, but I put here the reference to contact me on LinkedIn. I am always try to, be online or answer any questions, so you can contact me there. I also had my account on X, but to be honest, I use more LinkedIn. So whenever you had any questions or something, you can just reach out to me there. And Jose, are you there? I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's on me.
My mic was muted.
Okay.
Thanks so much. It was great. It was amazing. Thanks so much. A very good presentation. I like it very much. I'm. Let's see. There is. Okay. Eugene says, "Thank you, Karim. It was really a very nice. I don't know if there is any question there. If anyone wants to send a question, please send a question, and Karim can answer that if you want. So, are you using from my part? Are you using this AI agents in the daily basis?
Yes. I am still building this, from the QA side, with the documentation. I'm still building it. I am still tuning it. I am still, defining a structure, defining some middle step, like middle layers, for example, for standardize my information. So I am still investigating on it. And of course, I had my own AI agent, for my task, for my regular task. And I'm always trying to interact with it because it helps a lot and it makes me learn a lot also on which kind of things are needed. And maybe something that I didn't mention is that you always need to be the person who think, right? You cannot take it blind and say, oh, the model tell me this is the way it should work. It's always questioning. I say the skill for QA is to question, right? So we are in a great spot on that.
Okay. So thanks so much. There's no other question there.
Okay.
I have only one. How do you call this in English? So please send next year a paper for the Agile testing days. Maybe.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, sure. I will do it. Thank you. Thank you. So it was a pleasure for me to be here. And yeah, I hope that the people that was listening to this probably can take something important for them also according.
I hope so. Thanks so much for being there, and see you now on the back.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.